we heard arguments from everything from you can't tell me how to maintain my own property, to landscapers saying they would have to raise rates because it would take them longer at each house. We had all sorts of everything that everybody's heard. Our response was that the externalities involved in using these machinery, this particular piece of equipment, which is the lower decibel level, so the sound travels farther and penetrates doors, windows, and walls. So it's different than most motors because of the decibel level on which it operates. And so that, along with the particulate matter that's being blown and the pollution of the 30% of the gas and oil is released into the atmosphere unburned in those machines. So it's being breathed in not only by residents in the vicinity, but the workers wearing them, the health impacts, and the social justice aspect of it with workers who are often low wage or sometimes undocumented, just trying to earn money, and they have no idea the issues that health issues that they may be causing for themselves in the future. So all these things we decided to restrict the use of them. And our current ban goes from, we just amended our ordinance to make it May 1st. So we're happily in a couple of weeks, we'll be, won't be having to listen to them for the next 5 months. So it goes through September 30th. We are being pressed right now by a group of residents to ban them entirely all year round. So I think this is just a constantly moving issue. It was amplified by COVID and people working from home. So those who were like me and left home every morning and came home at night didn't realize that this was happening every day until they were stuck in their homes. And it's a real issue with regard to quality of life, pollution, the ability of animals, insects, all our ecosystem that is hiding under the leaves in the landscape areas of our homes during the winter. It gets blown out before they can hatch. There's so much wrong with it that it started with just the noise, and then the more I learned, the more I realized it's a lot more than that, and it's actually really bad for us overall in a much broader scale. So the argument that we can't tell someone how to maintain their property gets resolved strictly by the externalities involved. You can't, if the sound, the particulate matter, and the pollution and the fumes stopped at your property line, then we probably would have, you'd probably have an argument on that, but it doesn't. So that's where it becomes a community issue and an environmental issue and a quality of life issue.
That you said that you interviewed the landscapers also before deciding on this pilot program, and that after the pilot program or before, it was passed unanimously. So did you encounter any resistance from the landscaper companies or
Yes.
the residents? Okay.
Yeah, okay, so just to get the first conversation was 2016 was our pilot. So because it was a published agenda item, people heard about it, and New Jersey Landscaper Association actually turned out, we probably had 30 to 40 landscapers from across the state in our committee room to speak during public comment about the issue at both meetings. We passed a resolution to have it just a pilot that summer. Then we formed the committee after that pilot was over to analyze it and talk to we invited several landscapers. We interviewed them all. And during that time, and then the following year, 2017, is when it became an ordinance for an annual ban. So, and both of those, the pilot and the ordinance, were passed unanimously by the governing body. Having heard everything that was said, pro and con, and just discussing it and we really based it on the facts of the matter, and the facts are pretty clear on the health issues in particular and the environmental issues as well. Because our original ordinance applied to commercial entities, but not to residents. I wanted it to be across the board, residential and commercial, but I didn't have the votes on the governing body for that. some of my colleagues didn't feel comfortable requiring this ordinance to apply to residents. So as I mentioned before, we changed our ordinance this year. Again, unanimously approved these changes so that it goes May 1st through September 30th. It also better defines the machine itself so that we now apply this law to residents as well as commercial entities. Look, if we really truly want to be sustainable, if we want to be sustainable Maplewood, if we want to protect the health and welfare of our environment and our residents, then we need to apply this across the board. It can't just be, one group. And so that unanimously, that's why we changed it. Yeah.
Okay, so now that the ban is set, and what are the landscapers or residents doing instead? Is it working? Did the lawn stay tidy?
Mhm. Actually, yeah, from the beginning, even after the pilot, there was no noticeable difference between those properties that are maintained during the summer with leaf blowers or without. Because the reality is, and the main reason the main argument for the restriction in the very beginning was, what are they blowing, right? There's no leaves, there's no piles of debris. It's not spring rake out. It's not, the getting all the leaves from all the trees taken away in the winter. It's grass clippings. So it's not really necessary. That's the bottom line. So several landscapers are either using the mower, like going over the driveway to just clear any, just drive down the driveway and blow away sort of any grass clippings. Some are actually using brooms, which are just as quick as using a blower. And others have purchased battery operated blowers that they use in the summer to just do a quick cleanup. The fees have not gone up. And a lot of it is because they're actually saving time by not blowing the property every day and every week than if they were sticking around to blow everything. That because they have the same formula for every property. They go in and they mow, trim, and blow. So now they're just mowing and trimming. And half the time, any grass clippings on hard surfaces are gone by the next day anyway. But if a customer really wants them to get rid of every grass clipping on their sidewalk or driveway, they can do it with other tools. This isn't banning them from cleaning up or doing the property properly. It's banning a certain piece of equipment to be used during those months.
And what about in September when the leaves get heavier?
Well, thanks to climate change, we don't get too many leaves falling until late October, and our ban doesn't, they are allowed to use them starting in October. Personally, I don't think they're needed any month of the 12 months of the year. I think we, for decades, we lived without leaf blowers, which by the way, were not invented to blow leaves. That's the name they kind of got. They were invented originally to clear out big parking lots and stadiums, to just kind of blow everything through the stadium. They weren't intended originally to be used in close suburban neighborhoods such as we have in New Jersey, because we're so densely populated. It's not like, we're in Maplewood, most lots are 50 by 150, and that sound is heard for blocks, not only for the low decibel level that I mentioned, but because it's ricocheting off of the buildings and it's going, so it's not what they were intended for. They also weren't supposed to be used at full throttle, almost never, and when we were going through this, the National Landscaper Association had on their website rules for proper use of leaf blowers. And that included being 10 feet away from open doors or windows, not using it at full throttle, using only one leaf blower on a property at a time. All the things that we all know is not the way they're used. When this came up, the New Jersey Landscaper Association director contacted the national one and they took that off their website. I have it if you'd like me to send it to you. But those were their rules of operating them properly, and they didn't follow their own rules.
So the last question I have for you is, so is there a broader initiative, or how many towns do you know are banning leaf blowers? Are you working on something on a state level?
But the more municipalities that regulate these, just like the plastic bags, the more likely something will happen at a state level. And look, the landscapers know this is coming. They know what's happening. And it's not just Spring Lake, it's not just Maplewood. Currently, because I'm that elected official that got this done. And, I've been asked by many municipalities besides Spring Lake, Princeton and West Nyack, New York, and a place in Connecticut and several other towns in New Jersey, including Summit and Chatham and, there are Milburn, there are just a lot of towns considering this now. So just like the plastic bag ban that many municipalities passed, the state then felt like those representatives felt like they had a critical mass of towns already doing it, and that makes it easier for them to do it. So our fees fees for breaking our law are very, very, very high. And that was suggested by some of the landscapers we interviewed, because we had $100 fine if you were using the leaf blowers when you weren't allowed to. Now the first offense is $500, the second offense is $1,000, and the third offense is $1,500, and going forward. And the reason for that is the landscapers who were obeying the law were getting upset with those who were just absorbing that cost if on the off chance they got caught, right? So we increase those fines and we get more compliance that way.
Oh, and how do you enforce it? How do you
we allow people to use their cell phones to because they're time and date stamped. They can either videotape the use, or they can just take a picture of somebody using it, the address of the property and the name of the company on the truck, and they email it to our code enforcement office, and they will send a citation to the offending company. And I truly believe this is like a real dirge on humanity, the use of this equipment. And it's just, I want to help other towns kind of see that for what it is, and to kind of look out for those workers and look out for their residents and really pay attention to what's happening, because it's so unnecessary, especially weekly. And the other thing I just want to add is one thing we didn't used to do every week, even during the fall, was rake. We kind of we waited until a ton of leaves fell before we raked them. And then we raked them and did what we were supposed to do with them, maybe twice a week, or we raked them in the pile and had the kids jump in them and play in them. And then when it was time for the town to come by and pick them up, we pushed them out, by the street. But we didn't do it every single week on every single property. We waited, and that's not what's happening, right? I can't even keep up with the growth of my bushes. It's almost because my leaves are under there nurturing, giving them nutrition. I'm happy to help. And as I said to you before, any of your elected officials have any questions for me, you have my cell phone number. I'm happy to talk with anyone and kind of answer any questions offline and privately. I'm happy to do so. So